Kick off your shoes, lads. Hello, everyone. I washed my hair yesterday. It just hasn't lost the weird static energy that it has, and it just keeps... I mean, there's nothing I can do, so... Welcome, Ro. I'm glad that we're all settled in. Glad that we're all cozied up in the house now, ready to begin this year of documentation together. Something that I didn't really think through at the start of agreeing to do this was how much of a broader insight into you guys' life I would get. I, imagined watching that progress, but I didn't quite take into account how lovely it would be to see aspects of you guys' lives that I don't get to see very often, because most of us live really far away from each other. Hannah, I don't know how anyone could do the things that you do to the degree of quality that you seem to do them. I just can't. You kept listing things and I was like, okay, so she said 30%. Oh, there's more! And it's... My main job that I've had for a long time is I run a bar, but it's not as impressive as it sounds, because that makes it sound like I have my own pub. I don't have my own pub. When I was 17, 18, I used to go and watch this podcast be recorded, and we got to know the warm-up comic from it and a couple of the writers and stuff. At some point, we were at the wrap party for the final season of that podcast, and me and one of those people were chatting, and I was looking for a job because I was 18 and I was just leaving college. Not like college, American university college, but college is like what we do in between school and uni. In Wales, education is still only compulsory up to age 16. Some people stay on in their own schools if that school has a sixth form, but not all schools have a sixth form. It's 2 extra years and you could do A-levels. But you don't have to do A-levels, you can do something that's the same value but in one course, which is what I did, and I did creative media stuff. This is a tangent that we didn't need, but there you go. I was looking for a job because I was just leaving that, and he was like, that's so weird. This place that I work at, I'm looking for staff. And he was like, do you want a trial shift? And I was like, yeah. And then I went to the trial shift and I was the shittest at it ever. I was quite confident for an 18-year-old. I was very good socially and I was very good at presenting myself in a professional way and seeming like I was very switched on, which I was in some ways. But I also, because I had just turned 18, hadn't really been to bars that much. I went to my local for a couple of pints, but I didn't know drinks that well. Didn't know what cordial was, I didn't know what a lager top was, I didn't really know what a shandy was, and also prior to that, my only job had been as a Christmas temp in a clothes shop, so I really didn't have that much experience interacting with customers. One-on-one I was fine, but I don't think I anticipated how scary it is being at a bar, because it was a venue bar, so it's about speed, and I wasn't ready for how scary it is when you have about 400 people just staring at you. So I was rubbish at the job, I was terrible, and it was a 0-hour contract job, so I think if it hadn't been someone I knew, I probably would have been fired before I could improve. But I always had this thing with certain new skills, and new jobs in particular, where I would be rubbish for ages, and it would seem like I just wasn't getting it, and then one day I'd wake up and I just got it. I went in and I got better, and I think he was like, thank God, I do not have to fire this person I know. I worked with him there for just under a year. We were still good mates. It was lovely. Long story short, there was this whole changeover and I ended up being the only one left to take on the bar manager role, and that is where I stayed. I've been there now for 6 years, which is more than a fifth of my life. Because of the type of business it is, even though I'm a manager now, I'm still on a 0-hour contract, which is bad in some ways, but quite good for the flexibility that I want from it. I could go on little trips and come back and have it not interrupt my job. The bad side of that, of course, is that it was and still is quite irregular hours, so it's quite hard to build your financial life around. So over the course of the time that I've worked there, to get a bit of extra money, I've also worked in a card shop, I've worked in an Italian restaurant, I've done some TV running job things. I worked the whole month of the Edinburgh Fringe 3 years in a row. I don't like the stress of having to organise myself around that. If I have to work 40 hours a week to survive, I would rather work 20 of them in one place and 20 of them in another, so that I don't get completely bored out of my mind and I can kind of break up my days a little bit. Although obviously quite often it was more 50 to 60 hours a week, but that's fine. So I became the bar manager when I was 20. I'm now 25. Luckily, now that I'm the bar manager there, I kind of control my hours quite a bit. I have a team of 15 people who I recruited, hired and trained myself. They're my little team. I've had many. I have 2 supervisors who I've trained up to do the majority of my job that needs doing on a night, and I can rota them on to cover me pretty much any time I like. And that's handy because if you recall that useless tangent I went off on about college, not so useless now, is it? To back up, I, in college, did creative media production, which, before you start judging me, is not the same as media studies. It wasn't just watching film. I went to a college which at the time was called Coleg Glanhavren, but it's not called that now. It's called Cardiff and Vale College. Just in case you wanted to Google it. I don't know. And I did creative media production, and it was pretty good. A lot of the equipment was outdated, but it was there. We had a multi-camera studio with big cameras on wheelie tripods, and then a vision mixing studio behind it so we could practice that. We had a couple of recording studios and big shoulder cams, and it was good industry experience. That was what I wanted to do. That was where I wanted to go. Everyone in the industry says the best way to get into it is to work your way up from the bottom. So you get running jobs where you're making tea and coffee, sometimes holding stuff, sometimes carrying stuff, and then gradually you get more and more familiar with stuff. You can gradually work your way up the ladder, figure out which direction you're going to go in, and have a lovely career. So that was my plan. I left college, but my family house wasn't a good place for me to be at the time. And so as soon as I could, when I was like 18, 19, I moved out. And then I had to pay rent on that house. And you don't pay rent by applying for running jobs where you get 1 day work out of a month of applying, and then you get nothing for 3 months, and then you get 1 day work. That's not how you pay rent, kids. So while working that part-time bar job, I also had to get a job in a call centre. That's the one I forgot to mention. It's because I block it out in my memory. And I think I just muddled through. I was a teenager with soon-to-be diagnosed ADHD, and I was living on my own for the first time, and I wasn't very good at feeding myself or washing my clothes. And I ended up being like 19, having 2 or 3 jobs at a time, working 50 to 60 hours most of the time, and didn't really get the chance mentally to like apply for stuff, even put together a CV for quite a while. And then obviously, as I said, I got the promotion at the bar, and it's a job that I do really enjoy. It's not like a shitty job where I dread going in. I enjoy my shifts. I love the people I work with. I always have. I don't know how we've done it, but the most like cozy, friendly, not cliquey, but really tight-knit group of people has just formed in this workplace. But it's fulfilling. That type of thing is fulfilling. And I think what I've gained from this is a real sense of fulfillment that a lot of people my age don't necessarily have. It was the experience I had from this job that got me the jobs at the Fringe every year. And I went up there the first year and was a supervisor, and the next year was a manager, and the next got promoted again. And like, I never could have done that without this job. I'm not self-employed, but I can control my hours a lot. If I need to go in for a shift, there is a certain time I could go in that would be ideal. But if I showed up 20 minutes before we open, I could do it. The only person who's going to suffer is me. And that's really nice, because there's been days where I have like this background list of stuff I need to do, but then I'm having so much fun with a friend, like we're out for coffee and we're in a really good chat, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just move all that stuff to tomorrow, and I'll just go in when I need to set up. So I'll go in like an hour and a half later. And that freedom is so nice and so good for my mental health. And having a bar that it's mine is really nice. Like, I order the stock, I watch it sell. I've seen how designing the fridges in a certain way can increase sales of certain products. I created the lists of open jobs and closed jobs and cleaning jobs that keep it running. Everyone on that bar was trained by me. Whether it was well or not, I can't tell you. What I did do is I met a man called Martin, who is now one of my good mates, and he inducted me into his weird life where he makes documentaries. And I went from getting the occasional running job on like The Voice and stuff, which isn't really like a TV job, it's not really, and a location mastering job that I got through a mate, where we were by a recreated version of the Globe Theatre in Shakespearean times, and one of my main jobs was to clean up, but apparently what that entailed was picking up plastic bottles of water that are still half full and putting them in the bin. So I went from that to being like a pretty key part of his mini little team. Video editing has always been my strongest area, but like, it's hard to kind of be like, I want to be an editor, but also I want to do running to maybe do something that's more on location. But I want both, please. But I edited for him a lot of like pitches for commissioners of like documentary footage that he'd made that wasn't documentaries yet, that could be, that was a, you know, it's a long process. And I got so good and so quick and so much more experience with different softwares, but it wasn't paid because he's not paid. We got a short film into this little kind of festival that tries to highlight small Welsh filmmakers, and a documentary he made about his insomnia, which was on BBC One. I'm going to say BBC One because it sounds better. We'll go with that. BBC One. Maybe BBC One Wales. I got lots of good experience in like the process of documentary making, good experience in like sensitive subject matters, and I got some stuff that I could make a decent show reel out of, but I didn't make that show reel. And through all of that, kind of neglected to apply for running jobs, which I still wanted to do. So I've kind of like, I've always just been like teetering on the edge of actually doing what I want to do. And some of it is because my brain finds it inherently more difficult than a lot of people to organise and to remember things, but some of it is because I kind of got comfortable, and I want to work to not be that. I feel like in the last 6 months I have gotten my ADHD to a manageable enough level that I'm getting back on track. And I feel like I've like gained some life experience, but I've been picked up and plopped back to being like age 19. I'm a bar manager with staff. The bar management job is finally stable enough that it is my only job. And if I'm smart about money, I can keep it as my only job through the busy times of year and the quiet times of year, where I can get up to like 5 days off a week. So I'm trying to be what I was supposed to be when I was 19, and I am trying to work towards applying for stuff every day, all the time. And I've started a show reel for editing, and I'm trying to push myself to have the confidence to actually apply for jobs with that. So that's what I'm trying to do for 2020, career-wise. Last year, Martin got me some work experience in a production company in London, and from that, I got one editing job. So at the moment, it's maybe like 0.5% of my income is that. I'm going to work it out, actually, just for fun, because Hannah gave you some sick stats. Oh, okay, that's more than I thought. TV/editing type stuff is currently approximately 5% of my income. That's where my bar job really comes in handy, because obviously I can't quit my job when 5% of the money I make is in a certain area and just hope for the best. But I do also need the flexibility to pursue that type of stuff. Like some of those Facebook groups will be like, hey, I need a runner. And then 6 minutes later, it's like, this position is filled. Oh, I see there's 45,000 members of this group. Thanks, everyone. And that's where it comes in really handy, that it's still technically a 0-hour contract job. And I've got these 2 supervisors, so I can be like, hey, editing job in London, needs to go away for 2 weeks, you guys got this covered, and then just leave. And my boss is really lovely and supportive of that as well. If I could outline a like shoot for the stars, incredible scenario of 2020 career-wise, I think it would be quitting the bar job, getting a lot of editing jobs, but then potentially making enough money from that I could maybe go out and make my own documentaries. That would be like the dream one. The realistic one, increasing that percentage from 5 to 20. Like, that would be nice. Although actually, in an ideal world, if I could pick a dream job, it would be a professional musician. So, fuck knows. Okay, bye.